For the last few years, I've been putting videos out and I've been telling you Trump don't have that much money. He's not a billionaire. Now, when he was on the campaign trail back in 2016, he was out there telling people he had billions of dollars. And I watched some of his campaigning, and Trump is lying. Okay, where I live, we get a lot of New York news. Trump lied to get himself on the Forbes list, and he didn't belong on the Forbes list. He didn't have that much money even then. And this is why he was so buttsore over that comedian that went to the correspondence dinner and talked about how poor he was, because she hit a nerve. She was telling the truth. Trump don't have any money, y'all. So this stuff coming out about his tax returns, I heard about Trump's finances being jacked up 10, 15 years ago. This is really nothing new. I knew this man didn't have money. I want you to think about this. How many billionaires do you see do reality shows? None. Zero. They don't go on TV and do stuff like that. But Trump had to take that gig that he was given because he didn't have any money. And if you remember, Michael Cohen said Trump's finances are a mess. He said this during the House committee testimony. He said his finances are a mess. What you got is Donald Trump always try to claim he's the first to do this, he's the first to do that. But one label I will give Donald Trump. Donald Trump is the first broke president America ever had. There, I'll let him have that title. The first broke president. He's a con man. He uses the Trump name to try to gain status. But when you look at his tax records, you're going to find the Trump name should not be worth 2 pennies. And that's for real. I mean, I was telling people when he was campaigning that he didn't have the money that he claimed he had. So all of this that finally broke, I'm not shocked. They said Donald Trump lost more money than any individual American citizen. That is pretty damn bad. Trump is not a businessman, y'all. I know that's how he sells himself, but this man has lost so much in business with very little to no profit. Some of you need to read what he did when he shut down the casinos that he had. He literally locked the employees out. He doesn't have any money. I mean, in my opinion, I don't know why anybody is fighting to be around this man. You should be running in the other direction. And working for him? For what? You're going to be working for a broke man that have temper tantrums all the time. That's all you're going to be doing. He lost well over $1 billion in businesses. You and I couldn't lose that amount of money in a lifetime. But Trump got the opportunity to lose that kind of money, y'all. And it's starting to become very plain and clear. The more money you have, the more corrupt you are. The more shady you are with your money. And that's what we are seeing, not only with this, but the college scandal. The more they have, the more shady they are. But I have a video that came out from MSNBC. And this was probably about 17 hours ago, May 7th, 2019. I'm going to go ahead and play this video.
Information about Donald Trump between the years 1985 and 1994. And the numbers in those records show that in 1985, Mr. Trump reported losses of $46 million from his core businesses, largely casinos, hotels, and retail space and apartment buildings. They continue to lose money every year, totaling more than $1 billion in losses for the decade. In fact, according to the New York Times report just out this evening, year after year, Mr. Trump appears to have lost more money than nearly any other individual American taxpayer in the country. Let's bring in Trump biographer David Cay Johnston, who joins me on the phone. David, what did you make of this? And what does this square with your information you had all along working with him?
Absolutely. This is exactly what I've been trying to tell people about. It's consistent with what I reported when I got Trump's 2005 Form 1040 tax return 2 years ago, and what I reported back in the 90s when he arranged to shed $1 billion of his debt. And Chris, these losses that the New York Times shows are way beyond the losses he could take from depreciating real estate. These show that, in fact, Donald Trump is not the modern Midas who turns everything to gold. He is the wizard. And Toto, in the form of the New York Times, has pulled back the curtain and revealed the con man.
Unbelievable. Depreciation. I was thinking that word as we first got this report. One good way to roll up losses is depreciation. According to the New York Times, by the way, and this is the killer for tomorrow's news, Trump paid is everybody listening now, no federal income taxes for 8 of the 10 years. David, I just want to stick with you because you know the guy's character and his MO. This is what so many people suspected, that he was able to drum up enough costs in depreciation and other intangibles to justify not paying any taxes like all the people who don't make $1 billion a year or any near. The guy who makes, or woman who makes 40 a year, pays taxes and does it every year on April 15th, that they pay a big check if it's not withheld already. And here's this character who pays no taxes 8 out of 10 years. That's what a lot of people suspected was the reason he kept this secret.
Exactly, because Donald is a con man. Chris, there is not now, and there never has been any evidence that Donald Trump has ever had $1 billion. What we do know from public records and his actions, and now this report in the New York Times, is that money flows in and it flows out faster than it flows in. And one of the reasons we should all be concerned about that is someone who is constantly, desperately in search for money to maintain the appearance that they're wealthy is likely to commit crimes and be open to various actions. And one of the things that has been looked at, we don't have a definitive answer yet on, is Donald Trump and laundering money for Russians, Saudis, Emiratis, and others through real estate deals, some of which I've written about, that make no economic sense as a business deal, but absolutely make sense as money laundering and payoff operations.
Evan, you ran against. Did you suspect this?
Well, look, I think people have long wondered, of course, why the president has been so careful to hide his taxes. I mean, it is his red line. And I think most of us expected that maybe they might reveal one of two things or both things, that he wasn't as wealthy as he said he was, which, frankly, I couldn't care less about. But more importantly, does he actually contribute to the country? Does he pay taxes like every other hardworking American? And then you get into sort of some of the other money laundering issues and potential compromise by foreign powers that David mentioned as well. Those are important. But at the most basic level, I think for hardworking Americans across the country, to know that Donald Trump really didn't pay taxes, at least for the bulk of this 10-year period, while they're working so hard and while they didn't inherit millions of dollars and they struggle to make ends meet and they still pay taxes. And yet they have, this alleged billionaire in New York City who is paying essentially nothing. I think that's going to create a problem for him in 2020.
Maybe I tell you, the average person out there who gets out, they put their hat on, maybe a baseball cap or something to get through the hours they got to put their taxes together. I got to sit there. I got to sit there with a cup of coffee and all this paperwork. But I'm going to be honest. I hate it. I got to be honest. I'm not and you feel like a chump because you're just being honest. And you find out about a guy like him living in that house, living like he lives with the planes and everything else. And you find, wait a minute, he came up with tax dodges, depreciation allowances, stuff that justified, we'll see as a good accountant, to get out of it. When you're paying in dollars, he's evading in millions.
Yeah. I mean, look, there's a bunch of things going on here. I think one of them is as Evan said, as you're saying, just this idea that he didn't contribute in any way, apparently, for at least a good chunk of time
America,
to the American economy, while trying to pass it. I mean, this is where the whole, like, I do care that he's rich or not. I don't care if he's rich. I care that he was trying to pass himself off as this great charitable person. I'm rich and I have this Trump, charity and I do good with it, when that's a scam.
Well, no wonder he's being audited. Well, of course, I don't think he is being audited, but right. It would be if he never paid taxes for 8 years. But the other question is going to be, are these losses real? I mean, is this just smart, moving around of money, or is there tax fraud here? And I mean, my guess is if he was trying this hard to hide it, it's not just he's not this really rich guy, but it's also what scheme has he created here to make it so that he doesn't have to pay taxes? Well, I think the one question here I want to go back to David is, look, anybody can look at your taxes and have a different reaction. I mean, that's why Trump said he didn't want a bunch of think tank people looking at his tax returns, because someone would have a different interpretation. It wouldn't be so kind as to say, you don't have to pay any taxes 8 out of 10 years. I mean, he's right. And, probably you get a Sharpie account. It helps you out. You figured out ways to do it. He probably did it legally, technically. And yet he faces the fact that nobody's going to believe it, that's fair.
Well, Chris, first of all, remember in an earlier story, the New York Times said, without question, Donald Trump and his family have been committing tax fraud for years. And as soon as the federal judicial authorities began investigating federal Judge Marianne Trump Berry, she resigned because that stopped the investigation.
Sure.
Donald Trump also had 2 civil income tax fraud trials. He lost both of them and was excoriated by the judges. So I think there's lots of evidence that Donald Trump is a criminal level tax cheat. And it's one of the reasons it's important that Congress, under this 1924 anti-corruption law that you and I have talked about in the past, needs to get his returns and have them audited by congressional staff experts.
Now I'm going to stop the video right there. You heard that, right? So technically, Trump and his family really should be behind bars. If it was anybody else, you would be going to jail. If you was cheating on your taxes all the time and money laundering and all kinds of things he's doing, so he didn't have to pay taxes. Ladies and gentlemen, Trump is a broke man. He just knows how to con people. Okay? So I will again tell you, he's the first broke president America has ever had. Now, I can't say he's the first criminal president. There's been many criminal presidents. So he's not the first when it comes down to crime, but he is definitely the first broke president. He just knows how to con people, and he's made everybody believe that the Trump name was worth something when it is worth a pile of sand. But please tell me what you think, ladies and gentlemen, now that this has really come out. If somebody would have told me all the things that have occurred just from January to now, I would never believe it. But here we are, ladies and gentlemen. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell. And I'll see you on the next video. And also, those of you, if you can make a donation to my channel, please do. These videos are time consuming, but I always want to deliver my best to each and every one of you. Peace, family.